I'm active in the field of positive psychology, and I think that positive psychology provides us with a scientific approach to what makes life most worth living, but not with a philosophical motivation for actually living. So I think this is what meaning is all about, and that's why I'm so interested in the topic. There are a lot of problems around the subject of meaning. That's what I'll dive into first before we go on to the definition part. So we've asked this question to our mailing list of practitioners: what does meaning mean to you? And we got over 1,100 replies, I think. And we put all of their answers together in a word cloud to see what kind of words people use in talking about meaning. So this was particularly interesting because no matter in what order you read the words, some kind of story about meaning will present itself. So as you can see, people use the words life, purpose, people, know, think, happiness, values, existence, belief, and a lot of other interesting terms. But nothing coherent yet. So the problem of meaning is that it's a vast subject. There's a lack of consensus on what it actually is. It has the stigma of being impossible to answer. Some people think it's completely objective, others think it's completely subjective. I would argue that it's a combination of both. It's not that black and white. The responsibility of what field is it to come up with answers around meaning? Is it psychology? Is it philosophy? I would argue that it's definitely up to positive psychology. There's no theoretical framework. I think this conference has made that very clear. There's a semantical problem around meaning, oversimplification sometimes. This one is very important. We're not asking the right questions about meaning. Also, I would argue that the question, what is the meaning of life, is not the right question to ask, but we can't get into that right now, unfortunately. There hasn't been a groundbreaking work in a long time. Everyone is still citing Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which came out 1 year after the Second World War, so it's kind of interesting that we're 70 years later and nothing too groundbreaking has happened in the meantime. Let's try to approach a definition here, and I want to do that by starting to take a look at the word meaning, and that is, it's an English word. That's really what it is. Gonna let that sink in for a little while, because this was my biggest realization actually. It's an English word. And the word is a tool that humans use. And this tool is being used for different purposes, right? So in semantics we talk about different terms. I'll give a couple of illustrations of that. So you'll see a sentence and you'll see what the word meaning means in the context of this sentence. So what is the meaning of that word? The connotation of a word. What was the meaning of their actions? Talking about a volition and intended event. What is the meaning of life? Talking more about an intrinsic property. And this sentence came up as well during that gentleman's talk over there. The family had to make meaning, you said. And I asked you, again, what do you mean by meaning in that sentence? And you said it's about a contextual understanding. So as you can see, depending on the context, meaning can mean a lot of different things. Which was already clear for those who were into semantics in 1923. I don't know if any of you were, but Richards and Ogden wrote a book called The Meaning of Meaning, and they identified a lot of different usages of the word meaning back then already. It's a shame that their work is not being cited nowadays. So, different usages in different contexts. Other language, interestingly, my native language is Dutch. I also speak a bit of German. Don't speak Russian, but Dmitry Leontjev filled in that they also have different words for meaning in Russian. We have 3 in Dutch and I think in German as well. So this is partly an English problem, the problem of meaning. So it's an English word, we said, but it's also a noun, more specifically a common noun. And a noun, if you look at the Merriam-Webster definition, is a word that designates a class of things. And then the question becomes, what class of things does meaning designate? So, going through a lot of the literature and a lot of the books around meaning, I've been trying to categorize how the authors mean the word meaning in their research. And this is the model that I've been trying to falsify over and over again. And this is the model that's what's left in talking to a lot of people. These are different kinds of meaning, if you will. Please bear in mind that this is used to facilitate talking about meaning. I'm not saying this map is the territory, this is exactly the way it is, but we can use this in order to make sure we're on the same page when we use the word meaning. So it's not hierarchical, but the top one would be cosmic meaning. So it's dependent on the size of the context, right? Cosmic meaning, the context is the whole universe. So meaning in the grand scheme of things. Then there is existential meaning, which is the meaning of one's life. And the top two are concerned with the meaning of life. So philosophy. Whereas the bottom two are concerned with meaning in life. So this is more what psychology tries to deal with. And the meaning in life, the top one is situational meaning. And this is actually the biggest type of meaning that's there, where it's about the relationship between the subject and something else. And then the bottom one is the actual experience of meaning. So that's flow, for instance. That would be the experience of meaning, being in the present moment. A lot of third wave therapies deal with this as well. And they're all interrelated, so they're not as separate as they look now, because having a sense of what meaning is in the grand scheme of things, or being a part of a religion, for instance, might add to your experience of meaning in the present moment, might also add to your situational meaning. So they're interrelated. Okay, so I took a look at the literature and at the heroes who try to define meaning. So there are 5 different definitions here. I'm sure it's a little bit hard to see. But what's interesting is that we can actually use these different types of meaning to look at, okay, what is this person talking about in their specific paper or book? So the top 2 are concerned with existential meaning, the meaning of a person's life. The third one, by Baumeister, that I really like, is situational meaning. So he says it's a mental representation of possible relationships among things, events, and relationships, which is pretty accurate in my estimation. The third one is by Laura King and colleagues. It's actually talking about 3 different kinds of meaning in one definition. It's also interesting. And then there's Staker's one, which is talking about existential meaning. Okay, so the definition I like best actually comes from colleague Dmitry Leonchev, who's presenting at the same time now, so I'm really happy you chose me over him at this point. But I really like his work. He said, the essence of meaning is in its relational nature. So meaning is the relationship between the mind and the world. I think we're getting really close here. Oh yeah, and his article, the Defined Knot, it's called. I highly recommend that if you're interested in this stuff. So, what is the nature of this relationship that we're talking about in the definition? What is it characterized by? Well, that is very dependent on the mind, I would argue. And the mind, as Ken Sheldon also showed, consists of different faculties, or there's a paper that talks about the trilogy of the mind, which has been cited a lot of times, and it divides the mind up into the cognitive, the affective, and the conative. So again, I think that is just a map, not the territory, but what's important to understand here is that the experience of meaning is not something purely cognitive, something purely affective, but It's an experience, and it's always, it comes as a package of these three. So, Albert Ellis, he started, I think in the 50s, rational therapy. Rational therapy grew into rational emotive therapy, and it grew into rational emotive behavioral therapy, which kind of shows this evaluation, if you will, in science about thinking, what the mind looks like, how the mind processes things. So what he also found is that a person is rarely affected emotionally by outside things, but rather by his perceptions, attitudes, or internalized sentences about outside things and events. Important to bear in mind here. This paper I really like. It's called Experiencing the Basis of Psychotherapy. It's by Bohart, 1993. And he came up with the concept of experiential knowing. It's about the same point. It's a combination of cognition and effect. We can even go as far back as William James, who was already concerned with this topic in 1907, and he said, "Our judgments concerning the worth of things, big or little, depend on the feelings the things arouse in us. Where we judge a thing to be precious in consequence of the idea we frame of it, this is